Hey everybody, this is Charles Calhoun, aka the ShadeTree Pro. You know, um, I know a lot of people been asking me a lot of questions about, my golf philosophy and how I come up with these things, and not in a negative way. A lot of people have tried my top-down philosophy, and then they've come back and it's like, ShadeTree, how do you figure this stuff out? And and I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you something, or I'm going to lead you to something in a sense that's going to change your game. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to change your game forever. And the most important thing we have to understand about the golf swing in itself, or any sports in itself where swinging is required, is the grip. Now, I wrote this book, The Dead Fingers and the Middle Wrist in Sports. Now, you noticed I didn't say the dead fingers and middle wrist in golf. I said sports. I just use golf as the reference because that's what I do. And part of this is to teach you something that, that maybe you just don't know, or people just don't understand. You all hear me all the time, and I don't have no problem saying what it is that I say, and, I don't bite my tongue. When we look at, say, the top 1,000 the top 1,000 players in the players in the world, male and female alike or whatever, there's really no African American teachers that's teaching those people at that highest level. Is it because of what we look like? Maybe not. I think it's more, fact is that maybe it's the knowledge, because in any business, and don't get, teaching is a business, in any business, you cannot grow by just copying the same things that everybody else says and hope that, that's going to get them because they like you or whatever the deal is. I'm not in the liking business. What I am is in the knowledge business. And one of the main things I know for sure is this: it's just like money. You can't take it away. You can't take it with you. And it's just like knowledge in a sense. If it's inside of you, you got to let it out, and you got to let people know and let them be the judge of whether it's right or wrong. I've been trying to get, some of the top teachers or whatever, I've just been trying to get to say, hey, look, take a look at this book, read it, get an understanding of it, because I'm hearing these teachers talking about what the left hand does, what the right hand does in the grip. But once you truly understand what the grip is, and especially the dead fingers, which I'm going to explain to you today, in a sense, then you're going to leave all of this right hand alone, left hand alone, because what's going to happen is the balance of the hand is going to be exactly the same on one hand as it is to the other. And that's exactly what the dead finger grip does. Now, as I move on to this, you're going to also be able to find out that the dead finger is so important in all sports that swing. And the why it is because the pressure of which it does. Now, like I said, at the PGA show, not this year, but last year, I handed out over 200 and some of these books, simply because I have had so much success with this book. And it's still sells. Why I'm sitting here with you today and getting ready to explain to you about this dead finger is simply because the success that I am having with this book, it's time that I go ahead and break it down and let you all know what the dead finger is. Not everything, but in the essence, to give you an opportunity to see why you should have this book in your possession. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you all right now, the CEO of the PGA of America, Steph Waugh, I actually personally handed one of these books as I shook his hand. I put this book in his hand. Now, I hope that he took the time to sit down and maybe read this in a sense. Now, he hasn't been in touch with me about it, but if we're going to grow the game through diversity and whatever, then we've got to take the information from all parts that we possibly can, whether it's African Americans, whatever. We all got something to add to this game. And when you're overlooking other people's ideas or possibilities in a sense or whatever, then you're truly not growing the game. I know I say a lot of things of what, that may rub people the wrong way, but so what? That's life, man. Sometimes the truth hurts, but we have to tell it like it is. Now, the one thing I'm going to tell you, as I said here, and the most important thing that you have to learn about the dead finger grip is this. And that's why I want you to look over here, and you see that where I got the dead finger in the middle wrist. But you also see the instrument that they use to test golf clubs, which is like the ping man. Now, you notice that when the ping man, it goes up and it comes down. Now, you all have heard my philosophy, and I talked about it many, many times before, which is non-negotiable, that the golf swing goes up, it comes down, and it goes back up. But what's important about the Deadfingers is that the Deadfingers create a housing. It's not a grip, people. It's you know, I mean, you're gripping, of course, or whatever, but it's more like it creates a housing to allow the golf club to be able to be held in the hands, to be able for you to swing, to create whatever type of face angle that you want. For an example, when they put that golf club inside of the ping man, and I'm gonna show you an example. Here's what I'm talking about. The Deadfingers create a housing, and these two fingers are representing the Deadfingers. When they take that ping man and they put that golf club inside of here, what they do is they put it inside of the housing. They twist the little bolts down, which you can see on there. They twist the bolts down, and then they get a certain type of face angle. And then all of a sudden they punch a button and it comes down and it swings the club. And then if the club face is not exactly where they want, what they do, they loosen those up, they turn the club face, they tighten them back down, and then all of a sudden it creates a same swing action. No shallowing, no dropping, no this, no that, or whatever, just a simple motion of up and down and coming to strike it. And that's exactly what the Deadfingers do. They create a housing for the golf club to be swung. Now, let me tell you and show you what the Deadfingers are. Now, if you take a look, I'm gonna walk a little bit closer here. Now, if you look here and see my hands, I've got it written with the green lines going down it. The Deadfingers is actually your ring fingers. And the important thing about the Deadfingers is this: they are the weakest finger that's on the hand. And why they're the weakest finger on the hand, in essence, is because if you look at the thumb is 50% of the strength of our hand. And then if you look at the pinky, because it's small, you would think it would be the weakest, but it's not, simply because this right here is the thenar, that big muscle that you have in your thumb, as well as this is the hypothenar, which is the muscle that you have inside of your pinky. Now, what happens is the Deadfinger actually aligns in between those, and it's not directly connected to any type of muscle to some degree. And, you know, like it is normally with the hands. You know, the index finger is kind of sort of the same, but the index finger is the weakest. Now, one of the ways you can test that is put your hands down flat on the table and then try to lift your Deadfingers up. Now, personally, I can't really lift my Deadfingers up. But what happens is that when I grab a golf club, and I wrap those, grab this. When I grab a golf club and I wrap those Deadfingers around that grip, then all of a sudden it locks in and allows me, once again, to create a housing. So now I don't have to worry about where my thumb is on the left side or the right side. In a sense, all I do is squeeze those fingers. Now, when I make a grip, I make it as simple like this. And now y'all can, and you'll read this in my book, that all I do is I take my hands. I don't care if you use interlocking, overlapping, it doesn't matter, because that Deadfinger is the only thing that matters in the grip. So when I take a grip, all I'm doing is holding, put here, I use interlocking, that's just what I like. So what I'm doing is that I'm taking those Deadfingers and I'm laying that club in my hand, and all I'm doing is squeezing the Deadfingers on there. Why? Because both hands, the Deadfinger is the weakest finger on both hands. So now when I squeeze those, now I get a balanced grip, in essence, or whatever, or I get a balanced hold around the golf club, where I don't have one side or the thumb squeezing too hard on this, or the thumb doing too much on this, index finger, you know, the trigger pointed down to the ground, all of that stuff, this, and we talk about it all the time, about how you don't want the thumb to be too much, or the index too much, or this. I don't have to worry about the index finger being pushed in there, because the simple fact is that once I take those Deadfingers right there, wrap it around the golf grip, and I squeeze those, then all of a sudden that grip is set. Now, one of the reasons that so many people struggle with their grip, and it's a big part of my top-down philosophy, one of the reasons they struggle with their grip is simply because they are trying to make their hands match up with the hip action. And that's where the problem with your grip comes in, because one day your grip might, your body might be moving this way, or your hips might be moving that way, or they moving this way, and then all of a sudden you're constantly making compensations or whatever with your hands to try to get your hands to match up with the hips. But the only problem is, and you all seen me do it 1,000 times now, is that I can raise my hands up in the air and I can move my body as much as I can and my hips back and forth or whatever, and they're never, and I mean they're absolutely never, going to swing the golf club. So now, the biggest thing that I've learned is that once I end up getting this grip, getting that dead finger, then I said, okay, since it's the weakest finger on the hand, then what is it doing? And what happened, I had so many serendipitous moments that you all see me talking about these things in the golf swing. Now, I'm not making these up. I know they use measurements and they say, why measure this, and that? Well, the thing is the things that you're measuring, from my perspective, especially what I understand about top down, is that a lot of the things that you're measuring, they just don't work. And let's just be honest about it, because people try it over and over. I mean, one of the biggest things is try to get to your left side in the golf swing. And the problem is that getting to your left side, I don't think nobody's ever gotten to their right side. Because if you use common sense and you set up here, and if this knee breaks, and 99% of all golfers who make a turn or whatever, this knee actually breaks. So if this knee breaks, then this is where I am. And then all of a sudden when I come through, then all of a sudden this knee breaks, and this is where I am. That's common sense, people. And all of this stuff that I've learned is simply because my hands with the dead fingers are absolutely on the golf club as it may. And you can look here and you can see where I'm showing you how that dead finger comes across, how it presses. And I mean, it's just absolute. And here's another thing. When you try something and you want to put it to the test, then all of a sudden, you know, it should be something that shows you instantly. Now, I can tell you right now, I could sit here and I could take the index finger and the thumb off, and I could still swing the club. I could take the pinky fingers off, and I could still swing the club. I could take the middle finger off, and I could still swing the club with some type of control. But I will bet you to a man, there's no one out there who can take that dead fingers off, or your ring fingers, take them off the golf club, and actually swing that golf club with any type of control whatsoever. Now, most of you people who always get a little rubbing inside of your grip, your glove, it's simply because the pressure of the dead finger is not squeezing down to keep what we call the sixth finger, to keep it pressed. Because as you will go throughout my book, and you will understand that the ring finger and the pinky finger are actually connected onto the same carpal bone. It's just simple things that you go to understand. But the most important thing I want you all to understand about the dead finger is this, people. It is so vital to the golf swing. It's this. Is that because it doesn't have the direct connection to the thenar or the hypothenar, the thumb and all of that, then it has to get its strength, believe it or not, from the forearms. And if you wiggle, you definitely can see that, with all your flexors and all that stuff that's in your forearm. But it is the gateway to the forearm. And what I was able to discover is that when I got out of the way of the grip, when my hands weren't taking over, and don't forget, the hands are important, but just don't allow them to overtake everything else in a sense and be the all of all. So once I start feeling that, then all of a sudden, once again, those serendipitous type of actions start happening. I start feeling things going up and down my body. Why? Because the grip was correct. And anytime we throw something, like if you grabbed a baseball and you went to throw a baseball, if you take that, the baseball will rest on top of that, on that dead finger. You try to take that dead finger off, it's very, very hard to get any kind of speed, any kind of power. Another thing is, like I said in sports, if you take this, now how many of us that's played baseball have seen these people take the pinky and put it down here? Why? Because the pressure of the dead finger is allowing them to be able to hold the bat, and that's it, and be able to swing it. Then if you take a tennis racket, and you know how it's beveled on an end, the dead finger is still the same finger that's holding, and it creates, once again, even with one hand, it creates a housing to allow us to be able to swing day in and day out. That's what allows you, in essence, to create what we call that pendulum motion that people's talking. Because once again, the dead finger has to get its strength from the forearms, and it's directly connected to, it's almost like it just goes through the whole body to where you can just feel the whole thing. Because when I first discovered and started talking about this Deadfinger, I started realizing how much it kept going. When I swung my hands, I could actually feel it in my feet. But if I moved my feet, I couldn't feel it in my hands. And that kind of was, the essence of me building this top-down philosophy. So, as I said before, in this book, this simple little book, this book has so much information to tell you about what the grip is. I know there's these top teachers out there that, that I just look, and I wouldn't be Charles or I wouldn't be ShadeTree if I didn't throw no smash on a few things up there. I've offered to send this book to some of these people in Golf Digest top teachers or whatever, but hey, like I said, maybe they don't want to hear the information or something of that nature. Maybe they don't think you know something. Whatever the situation is or whatever, it's regardless. But the point is, people, this book in itself will tell you everything you need to know and learn about the grip. And the most important finger on the golf club is the weakest finger, which is your dead finger. It is the one that gets everything done. It is a must. I don't care what you're picking up, what you're throwing, you must use the dead finger. And I tell you what, and everybody's always thinking about the thumbs. There was a guy by the name of Gene Saracen. When Gene Saracen, I listened to one of these top teachers or whatever, he made this comment and be talking about what the left thumb does and this and that, and but let me explain to you people, the left thumb don't do pretty much of nothing. If you ever listen to Steve Elkington, which I thought this was a beautiful analysis, and Steve Elkington said when you get to the top of the swing that it's almost like it lays in between the two fingers, in a sense, which the index fingers and the thumb, which also adds to the point where I'm talking about that you're creating a housing. Because if you took and just let that go, then all of a sudden now you created a housing. Gene Saracen actually played with his thumb off the grip. He didn't even have his left thumb on there. So that in itself, and he's won all 4 of the majors, so that in itself tells you that there's something that's more important in the golf swing than the thumb. And that's what it is, people. The weakest finger on your hand is your dead finger. It is the weakest on your hand. But in essence, to grip anything, it is absolutely the strongest and the most important finger that you need to know. So people, as I said again, this is a great book. I'm going to continue to talk to you more and more about this dead finger. I'm going to break it down in ways that you can't even begin. As I said, because the dead finger in itself leads to the middle wrist, and the middle wrist action, because here's what's important about the middle wrist, and that'll be something I'll talk about later on. The middle wrist this is important. We're all trying to figure out, do we cock the wrist on the top side or the bottom side? Well, here's the beauty of this. The middle wrist, and if you understand anatomy and study your hands and look at the bones, you will realize that the middle finger is the only bone that really connects, quote unquote, to the wrist in more of a triangular form, which that is written in this book. And you will see that now the real cocking of the wrist is not on the outsides, it's actually on the insides. So with the dead finger, it's actually on the insides, and that's what allows us to release. That's why a lot of people are cocking it, turning it, breaking the little bones in their wrist. I think Luke Donald may have broken a bone in his wrist or whatever. I think Jin Young Ko on the LPGA is having problems with her wrist. I think Cameron Champ may have had some problems with his wrist. But the thing is that you got to learn, in a sense of whatever, to get that dead finger on there first. And when you do that, as I said before, you do not have to go to 10,000 things. All you do is open your hands just like this, whatever grip you want, put those dead fingers on there, squeeze them around that golf club first, get them turn the face to wherever you want, squeeze them to lock them in, and then you make your swing, always, of course, from the top down, and then you're on your way to playing your best golf. From chipping, putting, it doesn't matter. So remember, people, get the book. Go to shadetreepro.com, look under books. You can get it at Amazon. Tell your friends about it, and I'm going to tell you right now, get the grip right, and it'll change your game. Charles Calhoun, a.k.a. the ShadeTree Pro, and always good golf.